Summer may be over, but there's still a lot to harvest from our Zone 5 garden. Let's take a look at what I harvested today in late September. We've had large harvests like this all summer long, and they'll continue for at least a couple weeks, hopefully longer, when we have our first frost. Let's start today's video by looking at our last potato harvest of 2018. We started harvesting potatoes in late May and have harvested them every month since. This continuous harvest is made possible by following 3 strategies. First, we succession plant potatoes from March through May. Second, we plant early and mid-season varieties. And third, we harvest new potatoes for a very early harvest. These are purple Viking potatoes. We started harvesting them as new potatoes in August and waited for the plants to completely die back before finishing the harvest today. I like to feel around in the soil for potatoes rather than use a garden fork because that way I'm less likely to damage the tubers. After finding as many as possible by hand, I'll then use a garden fork to make sure I don't miss any. We still have at least another couple weeks before our first frost, hopefully more, to enjoy freshly picked tomatoes from the garden, and we still have a lot of them to pick. At this point in the season, most of our indeterminate tomatoes are 7 to 8 feet off the ground. I'm 6'3" and have to reach way up to harvest many of them. We sometimes top off our plants at about 8 feet, but we didn't this year because many of the lower leaves were lost to blight. But the plants continued to produce well up top. Many of our indeterminate plants are 10 to 12 feet tall, but I keep the fruit within reach by training them horizontally at the top. As always, we grew many different varieties. Right before our first frost, we'll harvest all of our tomatoes, eat many of them in soups and sauces, and freeze or dehydrate the rest. It's been another great year for peppers, which we grow 2 plants per 7-gallon grow bag on our front steps. The concrete steps absorb heat during the day and help keep the plants warm at night, which allows us to get them off to an earlier start in spring and keeps them growing a little bit longer in the fall. We have somewhere between 40 and 50 plants and many different varieties. We have so many of some of the hot peppers that we can't possibly eat them all fresh, and we'll have to preserve them instead. Some of them are so hot that I don't want to dry them in our dehydrator, because the oils being released into the air during drying would make it hard to breathe in their proximity. So instead I'll air dry them. I'll run a needle and thread through the stems and hang them up to dry by the thread. Turning out to be a very good year for winter squash and pumpkins, especially our butternut squash, which I'll show in a future video. Here we have 4 sugar pie pumpkins and 2 Cushaw squashes. This year's Cushaw squash are quite a bit smaller than usual, but the good news is that we got 2 fruit instead of just 1, which we usually get. We enjoy Cushaw roasted and in soups, but our favorite Cushaw recipe is Cushaw pie, which is similar to pumpkin pie. They store easily through winter, and we'll definitely enjoy Cushaw pie for Thanksgiving and Christmas. Okay. Now let's return to the front yard garden to harvest eggplants and herbs. We grow eggplant in the same type of 7-gallon grow bag that we grow peppers in, but only 1 plant per bag. This late in the season, the fruit are smaller, but they're still ripening, and we'll have plenty of fresh eggplant for at least another couple weeks. hope you enjoyed joining me for today's harvest video. As we close, I'll share more pictures of recent harvests from our Zone 5 garden.